and welcome to my retro watches. This video I'll be showing you another San Martin watch. Now I know I've covered quite a few on the channel recently and they've actually sent me 3 more to review whenever I feel like it. So unfortunately or fortunately you'll be seeing more of these watches on the channel as well in between the restoration videos. So what I've seen so far from San Martin is the quality is really good, certainly for the price that you pay. Okay, some designs are borrowed and you're either in that camp where you don't mind that, or you're in the camp that are dead against that. What I've got with these 3 watches is one is completely borrowed, one is completely their own, and the one that I'm going to show you today, which is in this canister here, is possibly 75% their own. It is a mechanical chronograph, so we can't go wrong with that. So like all my reviews, I'm going to take this watch outside, show it you in the daylight. So let's go there now and crack on with this review. Here we are outside and you get a first look at this watch. It's a great big tool watch. It's got lots of presence, but I think it's got a great look to it. Now there's a lot to talk about, but first of all I mentioned that maybe the design is 75% original, and that's because it's called the 62 Mass Chrono. So basically the case is in the same shape and design as the Seiko 62 Mass, which San Martin have already made a tribute to, along with just about every other brand out there. Look carefully though, and you can see that because it's a chronograph, they've made the case a little bit longer in order to accommodate those chronograph pushers. The rest of the look I think is pretty much San Martin's own. Okay, the index could be 62 MAS, but batten index, let's face it, is nothing new. Right, so let's start with the specifics. Of course, the case diameter, that's 40 millimeters. However, it does wear quite big. It actually measures 41 because the bezel's slightly overhanging. The case thickness is 14 millimeters, and that is in part because it's got a slight dome crystal and it's also housing the Seagull SD1901 chronograph movement. The lug width is the standard 20 millimeters and the lug to lug is 49 millimeters, but this watch has got male end links, which makes it look a lot bigger on the wrist. So here is a wrist shot and that will show you clearly what I'm talking about. Now I've got 7-inch wrists and this watch is just about wearable for me. Now onto the dial, and what a nice dial it is. It's very legible. San Martin I think have put some attention into detail here. Firstly, the dial is gunmetal grey, works perfectly. The dial is symmetrical as well, so it's not spoilt by any day or date window. There's a nice mixture of batten index, and those chopped index around the sub dials really does add to the aesthetics and also the telling of the time. There is a chapter ring framing the dial, which means that you can track the minutes perfectly, but because it's raised from the dial it also adds a lot of depth. Now talking of depth, those sub dials are countersunk into the dial as well, which is brilliant. Now quite a lot of chronographs, especially quartz ones that I've owned or seen, like the Stratton competition driver actually that I reviewed and bought on the channel a few months ago, that would have looked sensational with recessed dials. I'm guessing they can't really do it because they're using the VK64 movements from Seiko. Anyway, I think recessing the sub dials gives it a little bit of a classy and expensive look, and so far this watch I cannot fault, certainly for its looks. Now look at that hour and minute hand. They are absolutely spot on. They're highly polished. They've got a facet running around them as well, filled with Loom, executed really well. There's some macro shots, hopefully you can see that for yourselves. Very well made. And then add to that, the hands, including all the sub-dial hands, are capped, which means that you can't see the pinions coming through the centre of the hand. And honestly, it's touches like that that make the difference. Really nice to see, and I'm sure it's quite tricky to fit. Last things on the dial then, the standard hexagonal applied logo at 12, and then the water resistant rating at 6, with the flash of red stating the movement. Movement of course being the Seagull 1901. It's a hand winding mechanical chronograph that I've mentioned in another video review that is based legitimately on the Venus 175 Swiss movement of the 1950s. Onto the Loom then. Here is the Loom shop. Now I've noticed that when I wear this watch, certainly coming in from the sunshine into the house, this Loom shines really bright. It's C3. The baton indices and those hands seem to be filled with the stuff, and this actually shines brightly for hours. There's also a dot on the bezel. Really impressed by the Loom on this one, but I seem to be impressed by the Loom on all these modern watches. Onto the bezel then. The bezel's stainless steel, so is the insert. It's got black markers on it. It's got a big blob of Loom at the top. The bezel action itself is extremely satisfying on this one, and there's plenty of grip to operate on the outer edge. Actually, probably one of the grippiest bezels that I've actually been able to turn. However, should this watch actually have a bezel? I associate a bezel with a sports or a dive watch, and this is a chronograph, and to me chronographs are racing watches, they're timing watches, and perhaps it really should have a tachymeter. It seems though that diver chronos, which is what this would be, are a genre of their own. I've certainly seen through my research more prestigious brands that are offering them. So for this watch at least, the bezel serves no real purpose other than to fidget with. This brings me nicely on to my main and possibly only complaint about this watch. It's got a screw down crown to offer the waterproofing. This watch is hand wind only, so if you wind this watch too much or wind it full, you are not going to be able to screw that crown back onto the pendant tube. You're going to have to sit it out and let it wait for an hour or two to wind down sufficiently enough to screw that crown back on. That's a real fundamental flaw in my view, and San Martin, I've asked them about it. They are saying that they're working on a solution. Well, I think I've got a solution for you. Don't have a screw down crown. It is simple as that. This watch has got great big and very nice chronograph pushers, and they are not screwed down, and by not screwing those down but screwing down the crown, that's why it's got such a low water resistance. So it's kind of pointless really to me. You've either got to screw them all down to make the thing watertight or not bother at all. This is going to catch a lot of people out, I think, who are not used to watches, and they're just going to wind the whole thing up, and then they're going to realise that they're going to have to wait for it to wind down. Now, I think from memory as well, San Martin are saying to wind 10 to 15 times, and I'm pretty sure they actually put that in their blurb as well. So they are trying to cover that problem off. But I know full well that people are not going to read that, and they're just going to wind it up. So really could do better, should do better, and all we got to do to fix that is just get rid of that screw down pendant tube and put a plain one in. Job done. Everybody's happy. Let's turn the attention now on to the case finishing, because San Martin are very well known for this, and on this watch, once again, very well executed. You've got nice circular brushing around the lugs there. I think it's actually more turning marks than brushing themselves, because they're a lot more uniform, but it does give it that nice rugged look. Really high polished sides, and again you've got drilled lugs as well. That's nice to see. Much easier to get the bracelet on and off because those end links have got some very tight tolerances. There's not a lot of wiggle room in those at all. Over to the case back, and absolutely nothing to be seen here, folks. It is the most plain and boring case back there is, and come on, San Martin, you are missing the biggest trick ever here. This watch is housing a really nice looking mechanical chronograph movement, and it needs to be shown. People want to see that and look at the mechanics and be in awe of how it all works. And you could have put a lovely clear case back on this, and I tell you, I think it would have sold like hotcakes. It is a real shame. I would love to actually try and buy an aftermarket one, but of course that's not going to be available unless, San Martin, you make a clear case back. Lastly, the bracelet and clasp. Now the bracelet is very nice to look at. It's very heavy though, and it's very chunky. For me personally though, I think it's a little bit too chunky because it's such a heavy watch, and I've been wearing this in warm weather. I have to wear it quite tight so it doesn't slip over my wrist bone, which I do find annoying. and as a result I have to keep taking it off because it's kind of imprinted into my arm. As a result, I've also removed the bracelet now. I've put it on a waffle rubber strap, which has made a hell of a difference. Feels so much more comfortable, certainly in this hot weather. So definitely something you would want to pick up if you're going to buy this watch, unless San Martin would offer a rubber strap as an added extra, perhaps, who knows. The bracelet finishing is very nice, as expected with San Martin. You've also got high polished at the tops of all the links to give it a little bit of contrast. You've got screw links as well for adjustment, and then down to the clasp, it's their usual new clasp that they've got. Very, very well made. Nice, easy, quick release buttons on the side. You've got a milled underside as well, and you've got 4 micro adjustments, so no complaints there at all with the clasp. Now finally, the price. As of today, you can pick this watch up for 297 UK pounds, which is around $366. Now there could be some coupons available to you on AliExpress. There's also a sale coming up on the end of this month. I used to actually have a discount code for AliExpress, which was retro watch, all one word in capital letters, that would give you $20 off per $200 spent. Thing is, I now don't know if that's still valid, but if you're interested in picking one of these up, then certainly try that coupon code. You never know, it might still work. So all of that out of the way, the last thing to do is put it on the bench. We'll put it on the Timegraph. We'll have a look at it on there. Here we are back on the bench. The watch is on the Timegrapher, and it's given an amazing trace, to be honest with you. Now, the chronograph is actually stopped at the moment. I'm going to start it and just see if that makes any difference. But so far, we're looking at no beat error. The amplitude is pretty good, and the rate is -4 seconds. It is fluctuating a little bit, but that is pretty damn accurate. Now it is on full wide, so much so that the crown is actually sticking out. So I'm just going to start the chronograph and just see if we get any difference. And essentially, no, we don't. If anything, starting the chronograph looks like it may have improved things. So this watch is pretty consistent. Let's try it in a few different positions. So we'll put it at pendant down, which is crown down, and that's probably quite a stressful position for it. But we're looking to make sure that the lines are still staying roughly where they should be. So we're separated a little bit, and that just means it's under stress a little bit. So the tick and the tock aren't as even as they should be. So that's represented by the beat error there. But again, the accuracy isn't changing too much. Now we should leave it in this position for a few minutes at least, really, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to turn it all the way, turn it all the way around to pendant up or crown up. And again, we're looking for the consistency in these different positions, and that is okay. It's gone a bit balmy at the moment, but it will settle down, I can tell by the reading. There's no way that's 155. There we go. And finally, we'll do a dial down. That will be a bit off camera for you guys. Still remaining fairly accurate. That is going to settle down again, I believe. So it's probably still going to be within 7 to 6 seconds, perhaps. Slightly better than that now, I feel. I'll wait for it to get to where the 9 was, and that'll give us a true good reading. There we go, 4. So movement is very good. Okay, let's sum this review up. What do I think of the San Martin 62 mass chronograph? I think it's a good watch for the money, to be honest with you. For anything sub £300 that has a mechanical chronograph movement in it, has got to be a good deal. Let's face it, if that's a Swiss movement in there or a Swiss watch, you're looking at £1,000 plus, probably all day long, if not more. What are you getting for your money? Well, you're getting good quality build. Obviously the case finish is decent. The movement is still unknown. They've been around for quite a long time. I do read some good things about them, and I do read some bad things about them, so hopefully you get a good movement. The case obviously is borrowed from the the Seiko 62 mass. Not too sure about that. As far as I'm aware, the dial is original now. If it is, fantastic, well done Martin, San Martin. Keep down the original route, stop trying to copy everybody else. If it's not, of course, I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments. Now, I do have a few negatives. Of course, that crazy screw down crown, I think it's completely useless. Do away with it completely. Just put a standard pendant tube on there all day long, and that's going to be just as good. Change that case back. Let's see the movement. I mean, everybody wants to see the movements nowadays. That movement is highly decorated. It's got Côte de Genève stripes on it. We've got blued screws if they are really blued. It's got a lot to look at, and just a simple piece of glass at the back is all we ask for. The last thing, maybe it's my age. Now, I am turning 50 this year, so I'm classing myself as middle age, and this watch is just a little bit too big. Okay, I think if this had been 38mm, would have been really nice. I'm tired really of seeing these big watches now. They take a bit of getting used to, certainly if you've been wearing vintage, and I just think they should start making them just a little bit smaller. Opens up the door to people like me, or my age group and older, who would probably buy them if they're a little bit smaller. So again, let's try and make a smaller watch, San Martin. It would go down really, really well, I feel. Okay, so that is it. I'm going to be back very soon. I've just started filming the Seiko Bullhead, so you're going to have to wish me luck on that one, because it's been a long time coming, and I know a lot of you are waiting for that video. You want to follow along to it, and it's the first time that I've rebuilt a Seiko 6138 movement, so you're going to find out how I'm going to do. It's going to be filmed for the rest of this week and then edited, so it should be out in maybe a week, 2 weeks time, if all goes well, because let's face it, I don't know at this point in time. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you think it was worth subscribing, then please subscribe to the channel. I do reviews in between. I'm doing my main passion, which is the restoration of watches. What else have I got to say? Yeah, leave comments below. I'll read every one of them. I'll try to reply to as many as I can. Check me out on Instagram, My Retro Watches. You'll see what I'm up to on there. And if you want to get your daily fix of watch chat, then join my Facebook group, which is Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations. Now 10,400 people in that, all over the world, 24 hours a day, talking about watches, talking about repairs, helping each other out. Great community, and I want to see you in there. So bye for now. See you in the next video.